The
Where
Stellar
were your
Nexus
forces
Lounge
on the night
drifted
of
in
the
eternal
attack?
orbit above the
Answer
stormy
me.
gas giant Noctis, a place where aristocrats, smugglers, and officers from half a dozen worlds all pretended they belonged to the same class of elite. Its walls breathed with a kind of organic architecture that seemed grown rather than built, curving and twisting like the inside of some vast seashell. Through the panoramic windows, blue and violet storms swirled across the endless atmosphere of the giant planet below. Soft light pulsed in time with low ambient music, and the scent of a dozen exotic cuisines mingled with ozone from the station's recycled air. At the polished crystalline bar, a human sat alone. Cale Duran nursed a glass of Arcturon whiskey, the burn of the amber liquid cutting through the dull haze of memory. His tactical jacket and plated armor insert stood out like a scar against the elegant decor, but nobody in the lounge dared question his presence. The scars on his knuckles, the watchfulness in his steel-gray eyes, and the quiet authority in his posture all told stories of battles fought across faraway systems. His hair, thick and dark with a hint of unruliness, framed a face that bore more years than his age would suggest. He was halfway through his drink when a commotion cut through the polite murmur of the crowd. Two towering humanoid aliens in sleek, silver-gray armor moved toward a corner table. Their green skin shimmered faintly beneath the glow, ridged with faint patterns that identified them as Vexorian mercenaries. Between them stood an elderly alien, his emerald complexion lighter, threaded with natural luminescent lines that glowed faintly like veins of jade. His dignified robes were plain but finely made, the kind of clothing worn by a man who had once commanded respect but now lived with reduced means. "You can't do this," the old man protested, his voice carrying across the lounge. "My family has honored our accounts with the guild for generations. There must be some mistake." His tone was controlled, dignified, but a tremor betrayed his agitation. "Your credit account has been locked due to outstanding debt," one guard replied coldly. "We have orders to escort you out immediately." Gasps and murmurs fluttered through the lounge. The patrons, always hungry for drama but wary of involvement, pretended to sip their drinks more slowly, their eyes darting sideways at the scene. The elder straightened, shoulders squaring with a quiet nobility. But when the second mercenary gripped his arm, his composure wavered. Embarrassment painted his features as clearly as the light patterns etched into his green skin. Cale Duran set his glass down with a deliberate clink that echoed louder than it should have. His voice cut through the tense silence. "How much does he owe?" The mercenaries turned, surprised that anyone would interrupt. Their sharp features twisted with disdain. "This doesn't concern you, human," the first growled. Cale rose slowly, towering to his full height. His presence was enough to make several nearby patrons edge away. "I'm making it my concern. What's the bill?" The second mercenary consulted the display on his wrist terminal. 537 credits. Plus processing. Cale didn't hesitate. 600. Transfer now. He tapped his own terminal, and a soft chime confirmed the exchange. That should cover it. Now let him go. The two mercenaries exchanged frustrated glances but made no move to argue further. A human in combat armor wasn't worth the trouble, especially not one with Cale's obvious experience. With a final shove, they released the old alien and stepped back. "Transaction accepted," one muttered. "Enjoy your evening, sir." The lounge's background murmur resumed, though the glances thrown toward Cale were a little more respectful than before. The elderly alien turned to him, eyes glimmering with gratitude. Up close, Cale saw the intricate natural patterns on his green skin, shimmering faintly in the light like lines of ancient calligraphy. Marks of wisdom, marks of age. "I am deeply indebted to you, stranger," he said with a graceful bow. His voice carried the weight of old authority, though it trembled with age. "My name is Varen Solis of House Solis." You have spared me humiliation tonight. Kale waved it off. Kale Duran. Don't mention it. Looked like a simple mistake to me. Varen shook his head, insisting. Nevertheless, kindness must be honored. I would be privileged if you joined me for dinner this evening. My granddaughter prepares our family's traditional stew. You have never tasted anything like it. Kale hesitated. He had intended to spend shore leave drinking in solitude, drowning the lingering ghosts of the Proxima campaign. Yet there was something in the elder's eyes, a genuine warmth he hadn't felt directed at him in years. Against his better judgment, he gave a small nod. All right. Dinner. But I ship out in 3 days. Excellent. Varen's smile seemed to lift years from his face. My transport awaits. Shall we? As Kale followed him out of the lounge, a low hum of conversation resumed behind them. The station's elites turned back to their drinks, but more than a few pairs of eyes lingered on the departing soldier and the elder he had rescued. For Kale, an uneasy thought prickled at the back of his mind. He had walked away from firefights, sieges, and campaigns across a dozen worlds. Yet he sensed that what he was stepping into now might prove far more complicated than a battlefield. The transport waiting outside was a modest hovercraft, polished but simple, gliding smoothly through the orbital city's traffic lanes. Bioluminescent advertisements streaked by the window, neon against the dark curve of Noctis below. Kale kept his silence, watching the storm bands of the giant planet swirl endlessly.
So, Commander, Varen said at last, his tone conversational. What brings a human soldier to our corner of the galaxy? Shore leave, Kale replied simply. Thought I'd see something besides the inside of a battleship for once. Understandable. The Terran Republic soldiers are spoken of often. Survivors, always. Kale allowed himself a small smile. That we are. The craft descended toward the residential district, a series of slender spires linked by transparent walkways. Among the towering estates, Varen's dwelling was humbler, a smaller structure of curved architecture and glowing gardens. Home, he announced with quiet pride. Not what it once was, but it serves. The entry door slid open as they approached, revealing a warm interior where technology blended seamlessly with art. Varen called out, his voice lifting with affection. Lyra, we have a guest. A figure appeared from an adjoining room, and Kale's breath caught. She was easily one of the most striking beings he had ever seen. Lyra Solis moved with grace, her green skin carrying a faint pearlescent glow that seemed to capture the soft lights of the room. Her hair, silver white, fell in gentle waves past her shoulders. Deep amethyst eyes regarded him with curiosity, fringed by long lashes. A delicate dress of lilac hues clung to her slender frame. Grandfather, she said, her voice melodic, you didn't tell me we would have company. A spontaneous arrangement, Varen replied with a smile. This is Kale Duran of the Terran Republic. He came to my aid tonight when misfortune struck. Commander, this is my granddaughter, Lyra. Kale realized he was staring and extended a hand quickly. Pleasure to meet you. Her cool fingers brushed his as she returned the human greeting. And mine, Commander. Any friend of my grandfather is welcome here. Their eyes met for a heartbeat longer than courtesy required. A spark passed between them, whether curiosity or something deeper. Kale suddenly found himself very glad he had accepted the invitation. Varen, watching closely, hid his knowing smile behind a polite cough. Now, let us eat. Lyra's cooking will remind you why survival is worth the struggle. Kale followed them inside, but a part of him remained alert. Instinct whispered that this evening would not end as simply as dinner. After years of battles and discipline, perhaps it was time to lower his guard, but only a little. The Solis home carried the weight of tradition. Curved walls glowed with gentle light, and every piece of furniture seemed crafted not only for function but for beauty. The air was perfumed with the scent of herbs simmering, a fragrance at once unfamiliar and enticing. Kale Duran followed Varen into the dining chamber, where a terrace opened onto a garden alive with bioluminescent plants that cast soft hues of emerald and violet across the evening. "This is beautiful," Kale said as Lyra placed a steaming bowl before him. The dish exhaled a rich aroma, both savory and floral, layered with spices that tickled his senses. "Our home may be modest, but we keep our traditions alive," Varen explained, lowering himself into a chair with practiced dignity despite his age. Lyra smiled faintly as she ladled stew into bowls with fluid grace. When she leaned close to serve Kale, he caught a faint fragrance, something cool and floral, like blossoms that bloomed only beneath alien moons. "I hope our cuisine agrees with you," she said. Her amethyst eyes held his as she waited for his response. Kale lifted a spoon and tasted. The flavors unfurled across his tongue, rich and complex yet balanced with a light sweetness. "Delicious," he admitted. "Beats rations and battlefield slop by a light year." Lyra laughed, a sound like chimes. Varen's smile deepened at the sight, but soon his expression grew more solemn. "Commander, I owe you more than a meal. You deserve to know the truth of what happened earlier." Kale nodded. "I figured it wasn't just a billing error." "Indeed." Varen folded his green hands together. "Until recently, I served as a senior envoy to the Galactic Council. My family has held diplomatic posts for generations. 6 months ago, I uncovered a corruption scheme involving Counselor Zirith Caliph. A treaty that would have given the hegemony of Seven Suns access to restricted Terran technology in exchange for mining rights in the Proxima system." Kale stiffened. "I remember hearing whispers about those negotiations. They collapsed suddenly. Because I exposed the hidden clauses," Varen confirmed. "Powerful counselors who had taken bribes retaliated. I was forced into retirement, our accounts frozen under false pretenses. Tonight's humiliation was merely another attempt to break my spirit." Lyra reached across the table, squeezing her grandfather's hand. "We've kept our home, but little else. They seek to erase everything House Solis once stood for." Kale set his spoon down, instincts stirring. "If you've been targeted, then you're under surveillance. Have you noticed any intrusions?" Varen inclined his head. "You have good instincts." "Yes. There have been small disturbances, doors left ajar, faint shadows on the terrace, comm signals disrupted. Always just enough to unsettle, never enough to prove." Kale's gaze flicked toward the garden outside. Movement caught his eye, a ripple of shadow, too deliberate to be wind. His hand twitched toward the sidearm he didn't carry. "Don't react," he murmured. "We're being watched." Lyra's eyes widened, but she composed herself swiftly, continuing to sip her stew as if nothing was amiss. "They want to intimidate us," she whispered. "Who are they?" Kale asked quietly. "Primarily agents of Zirith Caliph," Varen said grimly. "He stood to gain the most from the treaty I exposed." Kale's reply was cut short by a sudden crash, glass shattering as a small metallic sphere smashed through the terrace door. It pulsed red, emitting a rising whine. "Down!" Kale shouted. He threw himself across the table, pulling Lyra to the ground as the device exploded in a flash of blinding light. By the time his vision cleared, 3 figures in dark combat armor had entered through the broken terrace. Green-skinned Vexorian mercenaries, their ridged features obscured by helmets, weapons raised with professional efficiency. Kale snatched a heavy serving platter from the table and hurled it at the lead intruder. The solid strike sent the mercenary reeling. "Get him to safety," he barked to Lyra, gesturing at Varen. She grabbed her grandfather's arm, guiding him toward an inner doorway. Kale stepped forward with nothing but instinct and improvisation. A disruptor beam lanced toward him. He ripped a decorative metal rod from the wall and batted it aside, the heat of the blast searing past his shoulder. In a swift motion, he swept the attacker's legs and sent him crashing into an ornate side table. The third mercenary hesitated at Kale's speed, long enough for Kale to close the gap, delivering a series of precise strikes that left the foe unconscious before he hit the floor. Kale pinned the second mercenary, twisting his arm into a painful lock. "Who sent you?" The alien spat in his own tongue. Kale pressed harder. "Draven," the mercenary finally gasped in common, using Ziritha's lesser-known alias. A fourth intruder burst through the shattered terrace door, firing a crackling pulse. Kale rolled aside as the floor scorched where he'd stood. "Lyra, get him out now." She appeared in the inner doorway, face taut with fear but burning with determination. "This way." Kale sprinted toward her, dodging another blast, and hurled a vase to stagger their new pursuer. Varen was already working a concealed panel in the wall. "Our people have always kept secret passages," he explained breathlessly as a section of floor slid open to reveal a dim tunnel below. "Go," Kale ordered. "I'll hold them." "I won't leave you," Lyra insisted. "I'm not asking you to," Kale replied, eyes steady. "But someone must guide him." Reluctantly, she helped her grandfather descend. Kale toppled a shelf across the doorway to buy time, then sealed the panel behind him. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, lit only by strips of dull glow along the floor. The air was stale but breathable. Varen moved with surprising certainty, whispering, "I played in these tunnels as a boy. They run beneath the entire district." They hurried onward, the sounds of pursuit echoing faintly behind them. The passage wound through curves until it opened into a wider service corridor. "We need to get off station," Kale said, scanning for exits. "The residential exits will be monitored." "The cargo docks," Lyra suggested quickly. "My friend Joran Vate works there. He'll help us." Kale nodded. "Can we trust him with our lives?" "With more than that," she answered firmly. "Our family's bond runs generations deep." They moved toward a freight lift that descended to the market district. The bustling crowd offered some cover as they slipped through shadowed walkways toward the cargo bays. Kale kept Varen close while scanning constantly for tails. Lyra walked beside him, her eyes flashing with both fear and resolve. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" she asked softly. "Special operations," Kale replied. 5 years before I transferred to Fleet Command. You saved our lives." Her hand brushed his arm, lingering just long enough to send an unexpected current through him. "We're not safe yet," he cautioned, though the warmth of her touch lingered. They ducked into a quieter alcove, hidden between cargo containers, to let Varen catch his breath. The old diplomat sagged against a crate, his breathing uneven. Lyra turned to Kale suddenly, her amethyst eyes shimmering. Before he could react, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. Startled, Kale froze, then slowly returned the brief, intense kiss. Lyra pulled back, cheeks flushing a deeper shade of green. "That is the meridian gesture of life debt," she explained, though her voice trembled. Varen chuckled, catching his breath. "Traditionally, it is a touch of hands, my dear. Perhaps you embellished." Lyra's blush deepened, but her gaze held Kale's, unflinching. Their quiet moment broke as a station-wide announcement echoed across the docks, "Attention, all personnel. Be on alert for 3 fugitives, a human and 2 meridians. Detain immediately." Kale tightened his grip on his makeshift weapon. "So much for rest. We move now." Lyra slipped her hand into his, a simple act heavy with meaning. Trust. Gratitude. Something deeper. Kale squeezed back. Whatever awaited them, he would see them through it. The cargo docks buzzed with activity. Automated loaders trundled between stacked containers while workers in gray jumpsuits shouted over the rumble of machinery. Security personnel patrolled in pairs, their weapons visible but casual, as if the idea of real trouble here was laughable. For Kale Duran, every noise and shadow carried weight. He kept Lyra and Varen close as they slipped through the crowd, using the chaos to mask their presence. Bay 12, Lyra whispered, pointing toward a loading zone. That's where Joran usually works. Kale studied the area. Uniformed guards were posted at each entrance, scanning the crowd with bored eyes that nevertheless sharpened whenever someone moved too quickly. The docks weren't a safe place for fugitives, especially not with a station-wide alert buzzing across every comm line. "Wait here," Kale murmured. "I see someone I know." Lyra's hand shot out, gripping his arm. "You can't just walk out there. They're looking for us." Kale gave a reassuring squeeze of her fingers. "Trust me. That's Oren Cade." He nodded toward a tall, dark-skinned human officer overseeing a squad near the security checkpoint. "We served together on Proxima. If anyone will help, it's him." Before Lyra could object further, Kale slipped into the maze of containers, moving with the practiced stealth of a soldier used to infiltration. He tapped his comm unit, activating an old encrypted frequency. "Jackpot. This is Reaper. Third container to your left. Don't react." Oren's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly, though he kept up the appearance of routine conversation with his squad. A minute later, he peeled away and strolled casually toward the designated container. When he reached it, his jaw tightened. "Kale Duran. Saints, man, the whole station's looking for you." Kale stepped into view, relief flickering across his features. "Long story short. I'm helping a whistleblower and his granddaughter escape a corrupt counselor's hit squad. Name's Varen Solis. He exposed a treaty scam that would have sold out Earth tech." Oren's eyes narrowed. "Varen Solis? The Meridian diplomat who tanked the Proxima mining deal? Earth intelligence has been tracking that mess. You're saying he's got proof?" Kale nodded. "Enough to bury Zirith Caliph and his allies. But we need safe passage. Now." Oren glanced around, weighing risk against loyalty. Finally, he exhaled sharply. "Bring them. I'll clear a path to my shuttle." Kale doubled back, motioning Lyra and Varen to follow. Lyra's distrust was plain in the tightness of her jaw. "Can we trust him?" "With my life," Kale said firmly. "And with yours." Oren's presence smoothed their passage through the checkpoint. His authority and uniform dissuaded questions as he escorted them across the secured zone. Once aboard his private shuttle, Varen slumped into a seat, exhaustion carving lines into his face. Lyra hovered protectively beside him. "We're clear for now," Oren said as he sealed the hatch. "But you need to tell me what exactly we're risking our necks for." "The evidence," Varen said, drawing himself upright with effort. "I placed it in a secure data vault at the Galactic Bank before I was forced out. Financial records, communications, drafts of the treaty with the hidden clauses. Everything. Then we'll need those access codes," Oren said. "I have them. But the vault requires my biometric presence. There is no other way." Kale rubbed his jaw. "The bank will be crawling with Calitha's people once word gets out. Any ideas?" Varen's eyes twinkled with a hint of sly pride. "The maintenance tunnels connect to the lower levels. And I have a friend still loyal, one who works security there. Tovan Rel." Oren grimaced. "That's a hell of a gamble." "Not a gamble," Varen corrected. "A calculated risk." The shuttle detached with a smooth lurch, engines humming as Oren piloted toward a secondary docking bay closer to the financial district. Kale sat in the narrow crew quarters with Lyra, the hum of the engines thrumming beneath them. "You're full of surprises," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Just a soldier who knows the right people," Kale replied with a half-smile. "And please, Kale, not Commander." Her lips curved faintly, and after a moment's hesitation she slipped her hand into his. Their fingers interlocked naturally, as though they had always fit. "When this is over," she began, then faltered. "When this is over," he prompted gently. In Meridian culture, she whispered, a life saved binds us to the one who saved it. Until the debt is repaid. Is that why you kissed me? He asked, teasing but gentle. Her cheeks flushed a deeper shade of green. That wasn't entirely traditional. Kale chuckled, brushing his thumb over her knuckles. Good. I preferred your version. Before she could reply, the shuttle jolted slightly, knocking her against his chest. She didn't pull away, and he found himself savoring the closeness until Oren's voice came over the comm, docking at Secondary Bay. 10 minutes. Reality intruded. Lyra drew back, though her eyes lingered on him. We'll survive this, she said quietly. Then maybe, we'll see what happens. Kale nodded, his chest tight in a way battlefields had never made him feel. When they reached the bank's service entrance, Varen moved with new purpose. His old friend Tovin Rel greeted them at a secure door, his green skin patterned with luminous streaks that shone in the dim corridor. Varen, you reckless old fox, Tovin said warmly, before his gaze fell on Kale and Oren. And humans, no less. Interesting company. They're helping me retrieve the Calith files, Varen explained. Tovin's expression hardened. Then we must hurry. Calith's men have been sniffing around. If they suspect. They hurried deeper into the bank's labyrinthine service halls. The air was colder here, sterile, the faint buzz of security fields humming through the walls. Kale kept close to Lyra, every nerve taut with anticipation. When they reached the vault level, Tovin entered his override codes. The massive door began to cycle open, only for a squad of armed figures to step into view, weapons leveled. Their uniforms bore the insignia of bank security, but their stance, their eyes, their weapons, mercenaries, Kale realized instantly. He exchanged a glance with Oren, a silent understanding born of years fighting together. Oren stepped forward, his voice ringing with authority. Commander Oren Cade, Earth Intelligence Division. I'm invoking Section 12 of the Galactic Treaty on Whistleblower Protection. Ambassador Varen Solis is under Earth's diplomatic protection. The lead mercenary hesitated, clearly not trained for legalese. We have orders to detain. Your orders are superseded by galactic law, Oren snapped. Interference will be treated as hostile action against Earth intelligence. While Oren kept them talking, Kale subtly shifted, noting every angle, every target. His gaze flicked to Lyra, who held herself poised, waiting. The lead guard's hand drifted toward his communicator. Kale moved first. In a blur, he disarmed the nearest mercenary, slammed him into his companion, and brought the stolen rifle to bear. Oren drew his own sidearm with calm precision, covering the leader. On the ground, Kale barked. Hands where I can see them. The mercenaries hesitated only a moment before obeying. Tovin secured them quickly, muttering, not bank security. Calith's dogs, through and through. Varen exhaled slowly, then pressed his palm to the scanner. The vault door rumbled open, revealing rows of glowing data crystals. He moved straight to a small box, unlocked it with another scan, and retrieved a single crystal, no larger than his thumb. This contains everything, he said, his voice weighted with triumph. Financial trails. Communications. The treaty draft with its hidden clauses. Enough to bring Calith down. Then let's move, Oren urged. My shuttle has clearance, but Calith won't give up easily. Kale's eyes lingered on Lyra, who met his gaze with quiet fire. Whatever storm awaited them, they would face it together. The vault door sealed behind them with a metallic clang, muffling the sounds of restrained mercenaries struggling in the corridor. Tovin Rel adjusted the last of the bindings and gave Kale Duran a sharp nod. They'll be found soon enough. We'd best not linger. Varen Solis held the crystal close, its faint blue-green glow casting ripples of light across the patterns on his skin. For a moment, the elder diplomat looked 10 years younger, pride and vindication lifting the weight that had bent his shoulders. This little shard carries the truth. The lies of Zirith Kalith will not survive the light. Let's make sure we live long enough to deliver it, Kale said grimly. Oren Cade checked his wrist scanner. Security chatters heating up. Kalith's mercs know what we came for. We need to move fast. The group retraced their steps through the sterile corridors, keeping low as automated drones buzzed overhead. The air smelled faintly of ozone and recycled coolant, the telltale tang of high-security facilities. Kale walked point, his eyes never still, every muscle tuned to the rhythm of danger. Lyra stayed close behind him, her hand brushing the small of his back whenever the shadows seemed to tighten around them. That simple touch reminded him what was at stake, not just evidence, not just politics, but lives. As they neared the service hatch that would lead back into the tunnels, a voice barked from ahead. "Hold it." A squad of armored mercenaries emerged from a side passage, rifles raised. Their green skin gleamed under the harsh lights, ridged faces twisted with hostility. Behind them strode a taller figure, clad in black plating edged with crimson, Kalith's insignia faint but unmistakable. Kale shifted his stance, instinct overriding thought. Oren, cover left. Tovin, get them out. Lyra's hand tightened around her grandfather's arm, but her eyes never left Kale. She looked ready to fight at his side if he asked it. The mercenaries opened fire, crimson bolts lancing through the narrow corridor. Kale rolled behind a support strut, returning fire with practiced bursts. Oren moved like a man who had never left the battlefield, his shots precise, forcing the enemy to scatter. Sparks showered from ruptured panels as bolts slammed into the walls. Back. Through the hatch. Kale shouted. Tovin slapped the access panel, and the maintenance hatch slid open with a groan. Go, now, he urged. Varen and Lyra ducked inside, followed closely by Tovin. Kale and Oren laid down covering fire before diving through. The hatch sealed shut just as a blast scorched the metal where Kale's head had been seconds earlier. In the dim tunnels, the echoes of pursuit grew louder. Oren cursed under his breath. They'll track us. We need a decoy. Too risky, Kale replied, scanning the junctions ahead. We stay together. The tunnels twisted endlessly, their walls lined with pipes that hissed faintly. Sweat beaded Kale's brow, not from heat but from the relentless tension. Every corner could hide death. Finally, they emerged into a utility shaft that opened near the financial district's secondary docks. The hum of engines and the clang of cargo lifters drifted through the air. Freedom, tantalizingly close. Oren checked the perimeter. Clear, for now. They moved swiftly, blending into the bustle of dock workers. Varen kept his head lowered, clutching the crystal beneath his robes. Lyra walked beside Kale, her eyes scanning as sharply as his. Despite the chaos around them, there was a calm determination in her, a resolve born of desperation and courage. As they reached Oren's shuttle, a sharp alarm blared across the station. Attention! Unauthorized breach at Galactic Bank. Suspects, 1 human male, 1 human officer, 2 Meridians. Apprehend immediately. Kale muttered, so much for subtle. Get in. Oren barked, powering up the shuttle. The engines roared as the hatch sealed behind them. Kale took the co-pilot's seat, while Lyra strapped Varen into a crash harness. Tovin remained standing, bracing himself as the vessel lifted from the dock. Traffic controls denying clearance, Oren growled. They're stalling for Kalith's forces. Punch override, Kale said. You planning to sweet-talk them when they scramble fighters? Oren asked dryly. Sweet-talk's not my specialty. Kale's jaw tightened. Flying through hell is. Oren grinned despite the tension. Thought you'd say that. The shuttle surged upward, slipping past automated barriers as alarms shrieked. Docking clamps released reluctantly, and the craft blasted into the open lanes above the station. Stars glimmered against the black, but Kale's eyes were fixed on the tactical display. Multiple ships peeled away from the station, closing fast. "Kaletha's mercs," Kale muttered. "Fast interceptors. He's throwing everything at us." The shuttle shuddered as a warning shot streaked past. Orin yanked the controls, diving toward a cluster of cargo freighters. "We can use them as cover." Kale's fingers danced over the weapons console, though the shuttle wasn't built for war. "Minimal defenses. We can't win a fight." "Then we don't fight," Orin shot back. "We run." The shuttle weaved between hulking freighters, thrusters flaring blue. Pursuers followed, their sleek forms darting like predators through the void. The radio crackled with hostile demands: "Power down and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be lethal." Kale's lips curled in a humorless smile. "They always say that." A sharp jolt rocked the vessel as a blast skimmed the shields. Warning lights flared red across the console. Lyra grabbed Kale's shoulder from behind. "We can't keep this up." "Where do we run to?" Kale studied the star map. Beyond the freighter lane loomed a dense asteroid field, jagged rocks tumbling silently in orbit. "Insane." "Perfect." "There," he said, pointing. Lyra's eyes widened. "That's suicide." "Not with the right pilot." He glanced at Orin, and for a heartbeat, the two men shared a wordless memory: STI Alpha, a training run through impossible debris fields. They had been told it couldn't be done. They had proved otherwise. Orin bared his teeth in a grin. "Hold on." The shuttle dove toward the asteroid field. Behind them, the mercenary ships gave chase. Kale strapped himself in, adrenaline singing in his veins. Lyra gripped the back of his chair, her skin glowing faintly with that strange meridian luminescence that flared when her emotions surged. Orin threaded the shuttle between tumbling rocks with impossible precision. Asteroids tumbled past so close their surfaces scraped the shields. Pursuers followed, though less deftly. One interceptor clipped a spinning boulder and vanished in a bloom of flame. "They're slowing," Kale said, satisfaction threading his voice. "Bigger ships can't dance like this." "But they'll still be waiting when we exit," Orin warned. "Then we need another plan," Lyra said fiercely. Varen lifted the crystal, its glow casting his face in stark relief. "The evidence is what matters. If we transmit this to the Galactic News Network, Caliph cannot bury it. There's a relay station at the edge of this field." Kale's eyes lit with possibility. "We dock, broadcast galaxy-wide. End this now." Orin swore softly. "Risky. Minimal defenses. If the mercs follow, we'll be fighting them hand to hand." Kale tightened his grip on the console. "Then we fight. Better here than running forever." Lyra's voice was steady, resolute. "We'll stand with you." Kale turned to her, struck by the fierce fire in her amethyst gaze. For a moment, everything, the war, the danger, the weight of survival, faded. All that remained was her, shining like a beacon in the dark. The shuttle angled toward the tiny speck of the relay station, hidden amid the spinning rocks. Behind them, the mercenary ships regrouped, hungry predators unwilling to lose their prey. Kale exhaled slowly, centering himself. The next hours would decide everything. The relay station loomed ahead, a lonely structure clinging to the edge of the asteroid field. Its spindly arms bristled with communication arrays, silent guardians of countless transmissions that crossed the sector. Lights winked across its surface, fragile against the vast dark. "Station control, this is Earth intelligence vessel," Orin K. transmitted, voice clipped and authoritative. "Requesting emergency docking. We carry evidence of council corruption requiring immediate broadcast." Static crackled for a tense moment before a nervous voice replied, Earth intelligence. That's unusual. Docking Bay 3 cleared. Hurry." Orin angled the shuttle toward the tiny docking port. Behind them, Kale Duran's tactical screen lit with hostile signatures. The mercenary interceptors had survived the asteroid gauntlet and were closing fast. "They're not quitting," Kale muttered, standing as the docking clamps locked on. "Time to earn our keep." He opened the shuttle's armory locker, pulling free a battered but reliable pulse rifle. Lyra's hand brushed his arm. "You're going out there alone." "Just long enough for you and your grandfather to reach the comm hub," Kale said, checking the weapon's charge. "I'm coming with you," she insisted, chin lifting. Her green skin shimmered faintly, luminescence flaring with her determination. "Lyra. My grandfather risked everything to reveal the truth. I won't hide while you fight." Kale met her gaze. He saw no hesitation, only fire. Finally, he gave a tight nod. "Stay behind me." The shuttle docked with a metallic thud. As the airlock cycled, Kale turned to Oren. "Get Varen to the hub. Broadcast everything. We'll hold the line." Oren's expression was grim but resolute. "Don't be a hero, Kale." "Too late for that," Kale said with a thin smile. The hatch opened into the station's quiet docking bay, dimly lit and eerily empty. Cargo containers provided cover, the only sign of life the distant hum of generators. Kale and Lyra took position behind a stack of crates, rifles ready. The bay echoed with silence, until the mercenary ship forced its own docking clamp onto the adjacent port. Metal screamed as the airlock cycled. Kale's heartbeat slowed, the calm before battle settling over him like an old cloak. He glanced at Lyra, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "When this is over," he whispered, "we'll have time. Promise." She gave a fierce nod. "Promise." The airlock hissed open. 3 armored mercenaries charged through. Kale fired, dropping the lead before his weapon cleared his shoulder. Lyra, despite his warning, activated the bay's cargo management controls. A container dropped from above, slamming down and narrowly missing another attacker, forcing him into cover. "Nice move," Kale called, grinning despite himself. "Xenobiology includes studying weak points," she replied sharply, squeezing off a shot that grazed a mercenary's leg. "Even mercenaries have them." Blaster fire scorched the crates around them. Kale shifted positions, firing controlled bursts to keep the enemy off balance. Lyra moved with him, every motion betraying both fear and courage. Above the chaos, a dignified voice rang through the station's comm system. "This is Ambassador Varen Solis. Evidence of Counselor Zirith Kalitha's corruption is now being transmitted across every GNN channel. The truth will not be silenced." Kale risked a quick glance at Lyra. Relief shone in her expression, mixed with exhilaration. The mission was no longer about survival, it was about victory. The mercenaries realized it too. Their fire faltered, desperation edging their movements. One shouted into a comm, "The files are gone. Retreat." Kale surged from cover, his rifle spitting fire. The remaining mercs scrambled backward, dragging their wounded as they retreated toward their ship. Kale and Lyra advanced step by step, driving them out. Finally, the last intruder stumbled through the airlock, sealing it behind him. The hostile vessel disengaged, thrusters flaring as it peeled away into the dark. Silence crashed down in the docking bay. Kale lowered his rifle, chest heaving. Lyra dropped beside him, her skin glowing brilliantly in the aftermath of adrenaline. "We did it," she breathed, her voice a mixture of disbelief and joy. He turned to her, a slow smile breaking across his face. "We did." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. The glow of her skin intensified, patterns shimmering like constellations beneath her flesh. "In Meridian culture, we light up when our hearts are unguarded." "It means," she faltered, but her eyes told the rest. Kale cupped her cheek, his rough thumb brushing the cool softness of her skin. "It means you're beautiful." Their lips met, fierce and tender all at once. The kiss deepened, a promise sealed in the quiet of the bay. For a few heartbeats, the galaxy's chaos fell away, leaving only them. A cough interrupted. Orin stood in the bay's entrance, Varen beside him. The elder looked tired but triumphant, the data crystal clasped securely in his hand. Orin raised an eyebrow, smirking despite himself. "I see you two held the line." Lyra's flush deepened, but she didn't step back from Kale's side. "And you secured the broadcast?" Varen's expression softened, pride and relief mingling in his eyes. "The entire sector knows the truth. Kaleth is finished." Kale holstered his rifle. "Then it's over." "Not quite," Orin said. "Kaleth's allies will thrash before they fall. But they can't hide now. The galaxy saw the evidence. We'll handle the rest." Varen straightened as much as his years allowed, dignity returning to his frame. "Then House Solis will rise again, not through power, but through honor." Kale glanced at Lyra. Her amethyst eyes held his with quiet intensity. Whatever storms awaited, he knew they would face them together. For the first time in years, the soldier felt something beyond duty, a reason to hope. The station lights flickered as systems stabilized. Outside, the mercenary vessel was a shrinking speck against the stars. The battle was over, but a new journey had just begun. And so, with the broadcast complete and the evidence of corruption blazing across every GNN channel, the fate of Counselor Zirith Kaleth was sealed. What began as a chance encounter in a lounge above the storms of Noctis ended in a fight for truth, for survival, and for honor. Kale Duran, the soldier who only wanted to forget the war, had found something worth fighting for again, an elder who refused to bow to corruption, and a granddaughter whose fire matched the stars themselves. Varen Solis had reclaimed his dignity, and Lyra Solis had discovered her own strength in the crucible of danger. Together, they had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy, proving that even against overwhelming odds, courage and conviction could pierce the darkness. But their story does not end here. As the shuttle carried them away from the relay station, their eyes were not on the danger left behind, but on the horizon ahead. A galaxy wounded by corruption had begun to heal, and in that healing lay new possibilities, new adventures, new battles, and perhaps, for Kale and Lyra, something far more personal than politics or war. If you enjoyed this journey through intrigue, betrayal, and unexpected connection among the stars, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Every like, share, and comment helps us bring you more epic tales of science fiction adventure. Smash that like button if you loved Kale and Lyra's fight for truth, and share this story with a friend who needs a reminder that even in the darkest void, sparks of hope can blaze to life. Stay tuned, because the galaxy is vast, and this is only the beginning.